Okay, so we're going to talk about color photography, which is really kind of an interesting piece of the puzzle when it comes to the history of photography. So, like the first 100 years of photography was basically just black and white. That was the only option. And this is because the technology for printing color had not been perfected. So, film and printing papers were expensive and color prints tended to fade over time. So, the technology just wasn't there yet for making good color photography. It was either too expensive or just not practical, and it just had technical problems like fading over time. And once the technology for color photography became developed and the medium became more affordable and practical, many photographers felt that color lacked the abstract power of the black and white image. So even after the technology was developed, a lot of photographers actually stuck their nose up at colored photography because they just didn't feel like it was as artistic as the black and white image was. So the actual development of color photography began in 1907 with the invention of color transparencies, and then kind of a breakthrough happened in 1932 when the Eastman Kodak company began making color film. So if you've seen The Wizard of Oz, the old one from I believe the 30s, that actually came out right when color film started being used. So the very beginning of the film is black and white, and then once she gets to I'm not quite sure what land it's called, but once she gets to a certain point in the story, the whole film goes to color. And at that time in film history, movie film history, it was pretty amazing to see a film that was actually filmed in color. So it's one of the first films that was in color is The Wizard of Oz. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest checking it out. So the key invention came in 1936 with Kodachrome film, which substantially improved the versatility and accuracy of color photography. Later progress actually improved the performance of color prints, and so they wouldn't fade over time. So through the 1960s, most art photographers disdained color film. They just didn't think that it had the artistic qualities of black and white. You know, all of the photographs that were considered art photographs up until this date, basically, are all black and white. So it kind of makes sense that photographers at this time are reluctant to use color photography for art. So photographers also had other reasons for disliking it, not just because earlier photography was all black and white, but also they disliked color film because the chemical development process usually yielded unstable prints that faded over time or evolved towards kind of a red color over time. Plus, color prints at this point were mostly just associated with family snapshots and tourist photographs. So it really wasn't a respected medium in art photography. Color photography just was not respected in the 1960s. But in 1976, there's a photographer by the name of William Eggleston that exhibited his color work in the Museum of Modern Art. And at this point, the world really took notice of his photography and his use of color in photography. He's really a pioneer of color photography in art photography, not just tourist photography or family portrait photography, but actually in artistic photographs, he's using color. So out of this new type of art photography, color photography became elevated. People started kind of thinking about it a little bit more as, an actual art form. So we'll take a look at one of his pieces. It's called Untitled, or Nye Bottle on Car Hood, from Los Alamos Portfolio, 1965 through 74. All of this is in color. So these pictures that he has from the Los Alamos Portfolio are very elegant composition-wise, and it's usually just everyday things, such as this bottle on a car hood. So two cars block out an abstract composition of off-balanced diagonals against a paved background, darkened by wedges of shadow. So we can see they're kind of in a diagonal. There's some diagonal lines here in this piece. And then there's kind of a diagonal, some more diagonals going this way. And they're kind of leading your eye into this bottle. Your eye might lead up. There's some more diagonals in these shadows here. So there's quite a few lines running through this piece that might lead your eye around. And there's some red in the taillights, which kind of echoes the red in the bottle of, soda here. So the soda bottle is really perfectly positioned in this piece, and it really helps to anchor the composition and capture the sunlight. So the sun coming through that liquid in that bottle, and even the kind of reflection that you're getting on the hood, is actually a really beautiful, bright color. The red color further creates focus on this, focal point, basically. The blue car, being a cool color, seems to recede into the background. And that red bottle really pops off. It doesn't look blue to me on my monitor. It looks more black, but maybe they're referencing this blue car. I'm not quite sure. So besides the skillful arrangement of objects in this piece to make it an interesting and dynamic composition, the photo really focuses our attention because it immediately evokes a world. So you can really feel like you're in this casual social setting in some American rural area on a warm afternoon. So if we imagine this work in black and white, it's really not going to be the same. If we took away the color, it really would make this photo super boring and unremarkable. So the color in this photograph is really a statement in and of itself of the true value of color and what color can really bring to a photograph and what color can really bring to photography as a whole. So his pieces are really some of the first pieces that are displayed in museums where, during the 70s, basically, where people are starting to really see color photography as artistic. So William Eggleston is definitely the pioneer of color photography. So we're going to talk about kind of pushing the limits of photography. Artists have recently explored a variety of techniques that go beyond photography's assumed limits. British artist Susan Durgaze lays large sheets of photosensitive paper on the bottom of shallow ponds at night and then captures the look of the night sky through the water. So we'll take a look at that. This is kind of the effect that she gets. It really does look like you're looking through water at the sky, basically. So this is called Gibbous Moon Cloud, 2009, unique Ilfochrome print, which I believe she developed herself. It's called Ilfochrome. It's very large. It's 66.5 inches by 36 inches. That's pretty large for a photograph, especially on actual photosensitive material. So she often shines a flashlight on the paper through the surrounding bushes, and the images she gets are these ghostly night scenes. And it really is as if we're looking through basically the water at the night sky. It makes you feel like you're at the bottom of a pond, basically. And this is a really imaginative and innovative way of capturing an image. Another artist that's pushing the limits of photography is Trevor Peglin, and his photographs highlight contemporary questions about government secrecy. So we'll take a look at his project called Limit Telephotography. So he actually approached a secret government installation, getting as close as he could legally as a private citizen. And then, this particular place is in a very remote location. And he actually photographs these secret sites with the best equipment commercially available to a photographer. And the results are still blurry, but they're still better than the naked eye. So here's one of his pieces. Open hangar, Cactus Flats, Nevada, distance 18 miles, 10:04 a.m., 2007, C-print, 30 inches by 36 inches. So he's really taking this as almost like he's spying on the government, but half the time it feels like the government's spying on us. So they're blurry, but they also are kind of tantalizing because his camera can see far better than the naked eye. And Cactus Flat is definitely a secret military installation where controllers pilot drones in war-torn areas of the world. So this photo really represents the citizen's eye, straining to learn more about what's going on, what is our government doing. There's quite a lot of mystery that remains in this photo, which is the visual representation of the mystery that surrounds the secretive military outpost. So it really has a lot of, the content of this piece is really strong in that it's kind of the citizen's eye on government and what are they doing, you know, under our noses. So there's also another artist, I'm going to struggle with his name a little bit, but Binh Dan, Vietnamese-born artist. Then he has his own method of recording photographs onto plant material. He actually takes photographs and then attaches them to leaves from his garden, and then he places that leaf and the photo between the layer of glass, and then he sets them outside in the sun and exposes them for several weeks on the roof of his house, and he actually gets these pretty interesting effects. So he has this photograph on top of this leaf, he puts it in a frame, he puts that on top of his house for several weeks, and the sun actually burns that into the leaf, which is kind of interesting effect. And then he ends up pairing it with, you know, this butterfly image. And this is called Iridescence of Life, number 7, 2008. And it's basically, this picture is of a man, I believe, from the Genocide Museum in Cambodia. So it's kind of almost a type of memorial to the dead. So in this work, Don embedded the print leaves in resin, or sorry, embedded the printed leaf in resin. So he's actually putting it in a resin base and then put some butterfly specimens in there. So this work seems really fragile and precious with a natural beauty to it. And Don is quoted as saying, "I have tried to show how like plants humans are, how we participate in the kinetics of events and the processes of creating memories by absorbing the history around us, and like leaves, we wither and eventually die. The residue of our existence nourishes the memories of the living like a decaying leaf nurtures the soul. So, or the soil, sorry. So that's an interesting use of photography as well, kind of his own type of photography. Okay, I might be able to get through the rest of the chapter. So the digital revolution, around the end of the 20th century, so the 1900s, the chemical photographic negative began to be replaced by new technology. So photochemical film is still manufactured and sold, but digital photography has really taken over. So we'll talk about Trevor Paglen. You know, for example, he uses only digital cameras. Now most cameras do not use film. Rather, the lens focuses information onto a sensor that translates light into digital files. So digital technologies have really made it possible to alter a photo in every imaginable way. So photography has really lost its reputation as the vehicle of truth, which we talked about earlier. Many contemporary photographers take advantage of these facts. So Jeff Wall, for example, calls himself a near documentary photographer, and he creates scenes that seem real. So they're really large. This piece is 8 by 10, and Boy Falls from Trees. It seems like a documentary, but it's actually a combination of images that he created in Photoshop. So he's really using the digital medium to alter images. And let's see, I don't know if I still have enough time. Okay. And then we'll talk about James Welling. He began his career using film, but has embraced the newer technology that has developed. So this 2016 photo, 9812, is one of series in which he layered together photos of modern dance companies, landscapes, and government buildings. And then he saturated each of these source photos in red, green, and blue, and the basic colors of digital photography, and then he mixed them together with Photoshop. So he's using Photoshop quite a bit. And it's really a dynamic collage of a figure in a backdrop with splashes of rich color. And it really looks like a painting, honestly. It's actually quite gorgeous. So any exhibit sees in a series. So I think that's it for now. I think I hit that just right. It was kind of fast. Sorry, I started to kind of rush through, but I was just wanting to try and make this all fit in the same video. So anyway, we'll see you next week. All right, talk to you later.